Imagine closing your mouth. The air stops entering through your lips, and for the first time in hours, maybe days, your nose becomes the only gateway for breath. This simple shift, sustained and deliberate, initiates changes that reach from your nasal passages to your brain cells, from your sleep patterns to your athletic capacity. For years, we've been told that breathing is breathing, that the route doesn't matter, that oxygen enters your lungs the same way regardless of path. But what if that understanding misses something fundamental about human respiratory design? Every mammal except modern humans breathes nasally at rest. Lions breathe through their noses. Wolves breathe through their noses. Mouth breathing is recent dysfunction, a compensatory pattern that modern life normalized but evolution never intended. What if, hidden within your nasal passages, lies sophisticated processing machinery that transforms ordinary air into optimized fuel? When you breathe only through your nose, you're not just changing routes, you're initiating a biological cascade that alters oxygen chemistry, carbon dioxide balance, and cellular respiration throughout your entire body. So what actually happens when you force air through passages designed for this exact purpose? What hidden processes begin with that first deliberate nasal breath? The answers are both remarkable and humbling, and they start before the air reaches your lungs. With your very first intentional nasal breath, your conscious mind notices the difference immediately. Air feels cooler as it enters, more controlled, maybe slightly resistant compared to the wide-open passage of your mouth. The flow is narrower, more deliberate, requiring gentle intention. But beneath this surface observation, something extraordinary is occurring that most people never experience because they bypass the mechanism entirely through habitual mouth breathing. Your paranasal sinuses, hollow spaces surrounding your nasal passages, produce nitric oxide continuously. This colorless gas, generated by specialized cells lining these cavities, serves a purpose that mouth breathing completely eliminates. When air travels through your nose, it sweeps through these sinuses, collecting nitric oxide molecules and carrying them deeper into your respiratory system with each inhalation. This molecule is a potent vasodilator. As nitric oxide-enriched air reaches your lungs, the gas diffuses across delicate alveolar membranes into pulmonary capillaries. Blood vessels throughout your lungs dilate in response. More capillaries open. Surface area available for gas exchange expands significantly. The same breath that would have delivered limited oxygen through your mouth now delivers substantially more because vascular access has increased. Research documents 10 to 15% increases in oxygen uptake with nasal breathing compared to mouth breathing at identical respiratory rates. Your conscious mind notices only the route change, but your lungs have received a molecule they've been missing, one that changes everything downstream. The first 3 days feel like suffocation, not metaphorical discomfort, but genuine air hunger, the persistent sensation that you're not getting enough oxygen despite breathing continuously. The urge to gasp through your mouth arrives repeatedly, insistently, demanding you abandon this experiment. Maybe anxiety builds. Your nervous system seems convinced you're being deprived of something essential. This feels like oxygen deprivation. But beneath this panic, something counterintuitive is unfolding. You're not oxygen deprived. Your arterial oxygen saturation remains normal, or likely higher than it was with mouth breathing. What's changing is carbon dioxide, and your body is protesting the correction of a dysfunction it had mistaken for normal baseline. Modern mouth breathing creates chronic hyperventilation. You breathe too much, too fast, blowing off excessive carbon dioxide. This seems harmless, but low CO2 triggers problems. Your blood becomes slightly alkaline. Chemoreceptors in your brainstem, which monitor blood chemistry, adapt to this abnormal baseline. They begin treating low carbon dioxide as normal. Whenever CO2 rises toward actually healthy levels, these miscalibrated sensors interpret the change as emergency and demand more breathing. Nasal breathing is naturally slower, more restricted. Carbon dioxide builds toward optimal ranges, typically rising from 35 millimeters of mercury to 40, where it should be. But your chemoreceptors, calibrated to dysfunction, interpret this as dangerous. The air hunger isn't oxygen starvation. It's your body relearning what normal breathing chemistry feels like. By the end of week 1, something extraordinary happens that defies everything you thought you understood about respiration. The air hunger has subsided. Breathing through your nose feels natural, even effortless. But more striking is how you actually feel. More oxygenated, more energized, mental clarity sharper. This makes no sense. You're taking in less air volume, breathing more slowly, with more resistance. Yet you feel better supplied with oxygen than ever before. Beneath these observations lies the most elegant paradox in respiratory physiology. Most people believe oxygen delivery is simple. Breathe in oxygen, it enters blood, blood carries it to tissues. But that equation is incomplete. Oxygen binds tightly to hemoglobin in your lungs. The crucial step happens next. Hemoglobin must release that oxygen in tissues where cells need it. This release is not automatic. Carbon dioxide and slight acidity cause hemoglobin to release oxygen more readily. This is the Bohr effect. When CO2 is too low from hyperventilation, oxygen clings to hemoglobin even in tissues desperate for it. Your blood carries oxygen past cells that need it because the release mechanism is impaired. Higher CO2 from nasal breathing triggers efficient oxygen release. You're breathing less air, but delivering more oxygen to tissues. Research shows 5 to 10% improvements in tissue oxygenation despite reduced minute ventilation. Not because you're taking in more oxygen, but because your blood has remembered how to let it go. Around day 14, you notice your breath has moved deeper into your body. It descends into your belly, expanding your abdomen while your chest remains still. This shift happened gradually, unconsciously, but now it's undeniable. Breathing feels effortless, powered from your core rather than your throat. Beneath this sensation, your respiratory mechanics have restructured. Mouth breathing encourages shallow chest breathing, recruiting accessory muscles in your neck and shoulders. These emergency muscles weren't designed for continuous breathing work. Nasal breathing naturally engages your diaphragm, the primary respiratory muscle designed for efficient operation. As your diaphragm contracts, it descends substantially, sometimes 3 to 4 centimeters, drawing air into your lungs from bottom to top. Your lower lung lobes receive significantly more blood flow than upper lobes. Diaphragmatic breathing fills these well-perfused regions, creating better ventilation-perfusion matching. Your respiratory rate naturally slows from 15 to 20 breaths per minute down to 10 to 12. Tidal volume increases even as rate decreases. Diaphragmatic excursion increases 30 to 40%, while respiratory rate decreases 25 to 30%. Your breath has descended from your throat to your core, from panic to power, from survival to efficiency. By week 4, mornings feel different in a way you can't quite name at first. You wake naturally, consciousness arriving smoothly. Your mouth isn't dry. There's no grogginess, no extended period of disorientation. Energy is immediate upon waking. If you remember your dreams, they're vivid, detailed, complete. Something fundamental about sleep itself has transformed. Beneath these observations, your sleep architecture is fundamentally improving. Mouth breathing during sleep creates multiple problems most people accept as normal. Airways partially collapse. Oxygen saturation dips repeatedly throughout the night. You rouse dozens or hundreds of times without fully waking, fragmenting sleep architecture. The nervous system remains in sympathetic activation. Nasal breathing maintains continuous airway patency. Your tongue rests naturally against your palate, supporting your airway. Oxygen saturation remains stable at 98 to 100% throughout the night. Your parasympathetic nervous system dominates. Deep sleep and REM sleep percentages increase measurably. Your brain receives consistent oxygenation all night, allowing proper memory consolidation and cellular cleanup. Sleep efficiency improves 15 to 20%. Apnea-hypopnea index can drop 50 to 70%. Your sleep was shallow, survival, punctuated by oxygen deprivation your conscious mind never registered. Now it's deep restoration, 8 hours of optimized oxygenation instead of intermittent suffocation. 2 months in, physical exertion feels fundamentally different. You can sustain exercise longer before fatigue arrives. Recovery happens faster, sometimes within minutes. The same effort level that once left you gasping now feels controlled, manageable. Your heart rate stays lower during exertion. You're not trying harder. Something about your body's relationship with oxygen has changed. Beneath these improvements, your oxygen delivery efficiency has transformed performance. Athletes traditionally believed more air equals better performance. This understanding is backwards. Controlled nasal breathing during exercise maintains higher carbon dioxide, which means more oxygen actually reaches working muscles, despite lower ventilation volume. Your anaerobic threshold occurs later and at higher intensities. Tissues receive oxygen more efficiently, delaying the switch to anaerobic metabolism. Perceived exertion decreases for the same work output. Your respiratory muscles work less intensely, conserving energy. Nasal breathing forces pace moderation, acting as a natural governor. You cannot hyperventilate through your nose the way you can through your mouth. This restriction keeps you in aerobic zones longer. Research shows anaerobic threshold can increase 10 to 15%. Exercise efficiency improve 20 to 30%. Your performance improved not by pushing harder, but by breathing smarter, by letting chemistry do what force cannot. 3 months and beyond, changes occur you cannot see, but could measure with precise instruments. Breathing feels even easier now, as though your nasal passages have widened, resistance decreased. Your airway feels more spacious. If you're attentive, you might notice subtle facial changes, though they're gradual enough to escape casual observation. Beneath perception, your airway geometry and facial structure are responding to new pressure patterns. Chronic mouth breathing creates specific forces on craniofacial structures. The tongue hangs low rather than resting against the palate. The palate narrows and deepens. The maxilla can recess. In children, these changes are dramatic and well documented, but even adults show measurable adaptation. Nasal breathing positions your tongue against your palate with gentle, constant pressure. This stimulates structural maintenance and modest remodeling even in adults. The palate may widen slightly. The maxilla maintains or improves position. Even nasal turbinates optimize themselves. Nasal passages remodel to improve efficiency, with airway resistance decreasing 15 to 25% over 3 to 6 months. In children, changes are profound. Palatal width increases measurably. Facial structure develops properly. Your face and airway aren't fixed architecture. They're adaptive structures, reshaping themselves around the forces you apply with every breath. Months into nasal breathing, your thinking has a quality it lacked before. Mental clarity is sustained, effortless. Focus doesn't require forcing. Memory feels sharper. Anxiety that once simmered has quieted. A calm you can't quite explain has become baseline. Beneath these shifts, your brain receives both optimal oxygenation and optimal carbon dioxide. Your brain comprises 2% of body weight, but consumes 20% of oxygen. Chronic hyperventilation causes low CO2, which constricts cerebral blood vessels. Less blood flow means less oxygen delivery despite high arterial oxygen. Proper CO2 from nasal breathing causes cerebral vasodilation. Blood vessels in your brain open, increasing flow 10 to 15%. But CO2 does more than dilate vessels. It regulates brain pH, affecting neurotransmitter function. Anxiety and panic attacks correlate with hyperventilation and low CO2, not low oxygen. Nasal breathing provides consistent cerebral oxygenation, with stable carbon dioxide and optimal pH. Cognitive performance improves measurably. Reaction times quicken. Decision-making sharpens. Emotional regulation stabilizes. Your brain wasn't oxygen-starved. It was suffocating on too much breath and too little chemistry. Clarity lost in chaos. What seemed like restriction was liberation. What felt like suffocation was optimization. You breathe effortlessly through your nose now, day and night, at rest and during moderate exertion. Mouth breathing feels wrong, uncomfortable, emergency only as it was designed. Your body has changed in ways both measurable and subjective. Sleep is deeper. Energy is more stable. Athletic performance has improved. Thinking is clearer. Anxiety has diminished. Even your face may have subtly restructured. But beneath these personal transformations logs a truth about human design that modern life obscured for several generations. Every mammal breathes nasally at rest. Only humans chronically mouth breathe, and only recently in evolutionary terms. Your mouth evolved for eating, speaking, and emergency breathing. Your nose evolved as a sophisticated air processing organ. It warms incoming air to body temperature. It humidifies air to optimal levels. It filters particles and pathogens. It adds nitric oxide. It regulates flow rate, naturally preventing hyperventilation. Modern life systematically broke this design. Processed foods requiring minimal chewing led to underdeveloped jaws and facial structures. Narrowed airways made nasal breathing more difficult, creating a vicious cycle. Chronic allergies and inflammation from environmental passages further obstructed nasal passages, forcing compensation through mouth breathing. This dysfunction, once established in a population, was passed generation to generation through both genetic predisposition and learned behavior. Parents see children mouth breathing and assume it's fine because they mouth breathe themselves. You haven't discovered revolutionary new science. You've removed a recent aberration, a systemic dysfunction that accumulated over just a few generations of modern living. Your respiratory system restructured itself for efficiency, returning to the blueprint refined over millions of years of mammalian evolution. The changes are permanent now, encoded in your habitual patterns, your structural adaptations, your physiology's new baseline. Nasal breathing is default. Mouth breathing feels as abnormal as it actually is. What you offered seems so small. Just closing your mouth, just breathing through your nose. But your body understood what that meant at levels deeper than conscious awareness. Not less air, but the right air, processed properly, through the right passage, at the right rhythm, the way evolution designed. And it responded the way biology responds when design principles are restored. It restructured, it optimized, it healed. It remembered what breathing was meant to be.